My name is Sarah, and I live with my husband, John, and our son, Michael. John and I have been married for a decade, and for the most part, we've been happy. At least, that's what I thought. We had a comfortable life, a nice house, a garden, and a routine. John worked hard and was a loving father and a dedicated husband. 6 months ago, we hired Alex to help with the house and garden. He also helped with Michael. Alex was quiet, polite, and always smiling. At first, I didn't think much about him. He was just there to help. But one evening, I came home late from work. John wasn't home yet. He was still working, and Michael was asleep. Alex was sitting in the kitchen, reading a book. I joined him, and we began talking. He told me he was from another city, that he had come here for work, and that he didn't have family nearby. He lived alone. We spoke for hours, and after that night, something changed. 1 week, John had to go away for business. He was gone for 3 days, and it was just me, Michael, and Alex. On the first night, we had dinner together. I sat with Alex again. We talked, laughed, and I started to feel comfortable. He made me feel special, in a way that John hadn't in a while. Then, unexpectedly, we kissed. It was brief but intense. I immediately pulled away, telling him it was a mistake. But he didn't say anything. He just looked at me, and the moment hung in the air. That night, I couldn't sleep. I was consumed by guilt. I loved John, and what I'd done was wrong. But I couldn't take it back. I told myself it would never happen again. But a few days later, it did. John was still away. It was just me and Alex. And this time the kiss lasted longer. It wasn't just a kiss anymore. It was real, and I didn't stop it. Now, I didn't know what to do. I was scared. This was a secret that weighed on me. How could I tell John? I was afraid of how he'd react, and I didn't want to lose him. But I couldn't stop thinking about Alex. Days passed, and everything appeared normal. John came back from his trip, and life went on as usual. We cooked, played with Michael, and watched TV together. But inside, I was carrying this secret, and it was heavy. Alex still worked for us, was good with Michael, and was always polite to John. Everything seemed fine when we were all together, but when John wasn't around, Alex and I shared an understanding. Without saying a word, I felt guilty all the time. I kissed John, but I thought of Alex. I played with Michael, but I thought of the secret I was hiding. It was always there, lurking in the background, making me feel worse each day. I stayed awake at night, replaying everything, wondering what I could do. I thought about telling John, but I was too scared. What if he left me? What if I lost everything? One night, as I lay in bed next to John, I looked at him and felt so sad. He had no idea. He trusted me completely, and I had betrayed that trust. A few weeks later, I discovered that John had been hiding something too. He was seeing someone else. At first I was angry, but then I realized, hadn't I done the same thing? We were both living lies. Everything felt more complicated now. We both had secrets, and neither of us knew what to do about it. Should I tell him about Alex? Should I confront him about the woman? Or should we just keep quiet and pretend everything was fine? One night, I made a decision. I couldn't keep living like this. The secret was too much to bear, and I needed to tell John the truth, even if it hurt him, even if it ended our marriage. I had to tell him. After dinner, when Michael was asleep and Alex had gone home, I sat down with John. My voice shook as I told him. I needed to confess something. He looked confused and asked what it was. I told him about Alex and everything that had happened while he was away. I told him I was sorry, that I loved him, and that I didn't know what to do. John didn't say anything right away. He just stared at me. I didn't know what he was thinking. I was terrified that he'd leave me, that he'd yell at me, but he didn't. Finally, he spoke. "I've been seeing someone too," he said. My heart dropped. I was silent. He told me it had started months ago, that it wasn't supposed to happen, but it had. "I'm sorry," he added. Months passed, and things started to get better. John and I worked hard on our marriage. We spent more time together, communicated more, and were honest with each other. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. After Alex left, the house felt strange. Quiet, almost too quiet. I told him Alex had found another job. It wasn't a lie. But it wasn't the whole truth either. That was the hardest part. Keeping the truth from my son? John and I went to counseling once a week. At first, it was difficult. We had to confront our mistakes, our feelings, and our actions. The counselor asked me why I kissed Alex, and I didn't know how to answer. I loved John, but I kissed Alex. I told the counselor I had felt alone. John was always working, and it seemed like we were living separate lives. Alex made me feel seen. He made me feel special. John was hurt by my words, but they were the truth. Trust is a fragile thing, and after everything, it was hard to rebuild. John didn't trust me the same way. I could feel it. If I came home late, he'd ask where I'd been. If I was on my phone, he'd look at me differently. But I didn't blame him. I didn't trust him completely either. Not after I found out about the woman. The counselor told us trust takes time, that we needed to be patient with each other. I wanted everything to go back to normal, but I knew it would take time. Every day, I worked hard to show John that I loved him, that I was sorry, and that I wanted to fix things. John did the same. He started coming home earlier. He had more family dinners, and we spent weekends together. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. One day, I finally asked John about the woman he had been seeing. I hadn't asked before. But now I needed to know. He seemed uncomfortable, but he told me her name was Lisa, and she worked at his office. I felt a pang in my chest. I didn't want to know more, but I had to ask. "Do you still see her?" I asked. "No," John replied quickly. "It ended before you told me about Alex." That made me feel a little better, but it still hurt. I sat in silence for a while before John spoke again. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I made a mistake. I love you, and I don't want to lose you. I love you too, and I meant it. We had both made mistakes, but we both wanted to fix things. Months went by, and things slowly improved. We started to trust each other again. We made sure to talk more, spend more time together, and never keep secrets. We also set new rules. If something was bothering us, we had to talk about it immediately. No more secrets. Michael seemed happy. He didn't ask about Alex anymore. And John and I were doing our best to provide a home full of love and honesty. It wasn't always easy, but it was worth it. A year after everything happened, John and I went on a trip together, just the two of us. Michael stayed with my sister, and John and I went to a small beach town. It was the first time we had been alone together in a long time, and it did wonders for us. We talked about our future and agreed that we wanted to stay together. On the last night of the trip, John surprised me with a new wedding ring. "I want us to start fresh," he said, offering me the ring. We both decided to leave the past behind and focus on the future. We were stronger than before, and now we're closer than ever. Our marriage isn't perfect, but it's real. We've learned to trust each other, communicate openly, and never keep secrets. Michael is growing up happy, surrounded by love and honesty. We are a family, and that's all that matters. If you want more content, then please hit the like button and subscribe for more content. Thanks.